Hey guys, IMO here. Today, let's talk about Sherlock Holmes, everyone's favorite British detective. Like most pop culture icons, there have been a lot, and I mean a lot, of adaptations and revised versions of Sherlock Holmes over the years. Everybody has their favorite iteration. However, with regard to the question of who is the definitive version of the original Sherlock Holmes character, is to my mind the version of Holmes as portrayed by Robert Downey Jr. It's strange because, for the most part, RDJ's Sherlock Holmes has been tragically overshadowed by the likes of Benedict Cumberbatch's Holmes, in surely no small part due to the fact that RDJ's Holmes resides in a two-film trilogy, with the sequel to Sherlock Holmes: A Game of Shadows having been delayed and put off of production variously for the last 11 years. Nevertheless, it's time to go over the first of RDJ's two Sherlock Holmes films. Warning, spoilers ahead. It is the 1890s. The Victorian era is almost at an end. Having seemingly finished the last case together, Sherlock Holmes and Dr. John Watson prepare to go their separate ways. However, their final case returns to haunt them when Lord Henry Blackwood, a serial killer and apparent practitioner of black magic, returns from the grave on a murderous quest that only Holmes can hope to check. This is Sherlock Holmes. Now that we've got the summary out of the way, let's get into the real meat of the film. The first thing that makes this film the definitive adaptation is its director, Guy Ritchie. Ritchie is one of the premier visual filmmakers today alongside Zack Snyder. His non-linear form of storytelling is a perfect fit for the world of Sherlock Holmes. As you might expect, in the books, Holmes almost always only explained how he found out what he did after the mystery of the story had been completed, not while he was actually in the midst of detecting. Fresh off the success of Iron Man, RDJ pulled in another stellar performance as Sherlock Holmes. In a lot of ways, his Holmes is similar to his Tony Stark in that both are misunderstood, arrogant geniuses. However, while Stark was rash, Sherlock is almost always collected and multiple steps ahead of his opponent, as showcased through his Sherlock vision. This is, in fact, perhaps the gravest flaw with this film. A flaw, I may point out, which is addressed in the sequel. With regards to that, Sherlock doesn't seem to be in very much danger, and he's only rarely shown as being in over his head. Still, even in this film, this problem is addressed by thrusting Sherlock's allies, such as Dr. Watson and Irene Adler, into mortal danger on a more regular basis. One thing that I really liked about this depiction of Holmes is that he needed to be on a case, or he would start to get insanely bored. This was actually a key part of his character in the stories, and especially in the second book specifically. Sherlock solves cases as a coping mechanism. Also, his penchant for elaborate disguises was also used multiple times throughout the movie, not merely as a gag or gimmick, as it easily could have been, but actually as a means to put plot forward. In general, Sherlock is a pretty active protagonist, which is always good. Jude Law as Dr. John Watson was also pretty great. The nuance of Watson's character definitely shines through here. Although in the original stories, Watson was the narrator, and that isn't true here. In this film, Watson is still a key player and by no means a simpleton to contrast with Holmes. a lot of the heart of this film came from Watson's friendship with Holmes, and that is in large part due to Jude Law's performance. Speaking of the heart of the film, the tone is actually pretty dark. There's black magic and dead bodies and a horrifying sequence in a pig slaughtery. The tone fits the story, in which superstition and fear is seeping throughout London, as Blackwood's apparent supernatural powers bring more people under his ever-widening thrall. If you really think about it, a big part of this film's message is about how such things as mob fear, superstition, and paranoia only help spread evil. As one might expect, Blackwood's powers aren't actually real, but the technical reveals are shaved to after the climax, so for the most part the audience gets to share the feelings that those around Blackwood experience. Mark Strong was a great choice to play Blackwood, a film original character, by the way. Strong nails the dread and terror that you're supposed to feel, and he's got this sense of menace that a lesser actor would not have been able to produce, what with the stereotypical big black cape and whatnot. The effects used in this film deserve a passing mention as well, considering the extent to which they convincingly depict late 19th century London. Admittedly, I'm by no means an expert on such things, but the effects are good and properly chilling, and the final fight, although perhaps lacking the effects of this decade, was nevertheless executed, pun not intended, in a satisfactory manner. The writing and script are also great. Holmes and Watson in particular bounce off each other really well. As I mentioned before, RDJ tends to do very well with egotistic characters, which probably helps. There are also a couple of really cool details for attentive viewers to pick out. For example, at the start of the film, Sherlock Holmes hides his face when a cameraman tries to take a picture of him, and then later, when Sherlock is being hunted down by the police, he remarks happily that there's no photo of him in the wanted description in a newspaper. It's little details like that that really make this film shine. So in my opinion, Sherlock Holmes is not just an entertaining mystery flick, but also the definitive adaptation of the Sherlock Holmes canon. Next week, I'm going to be covering Sherlock Holmes: A Game of Shadows, so if that sounds interesting to you, don't forget to subscribe and make sure all notifications are on. Also, please leave a like and or a comment. It helps me and my channel reach new viewers, and I would really appreciate it. Thanks a ton. IMO out.